Hi, YouTube. Suki here with another thought for today. Today, I do want to discuss Israel and Palestine. I actually wanted to make a video on the Board of Peace and Gaza War, but I figured that before I make anything like that, I need to make a video first with my basic stance on Israel Palestine. Now, first off, I just want to get a little pet peeve off my chest. One thing I really dislike about pro Palestinian commentators is that when they discuss something on their show, they come fully equipped with all the history. Like, they'll go back to Balfour, they'll go back to the Nakba, they'll go back to 1967 war, maybe Sabra and Shatila get mentioned. So, that was fine. There's no problem with that. That really happened. The problem is, let's say the show is 30 minutes. By the time you've discussed all of that history, you've already taken up 25 minutes, and all of your like new stuff is only 5 minutes long. And I'm not there to listen to the history. I'm there to listen to what you want to do about the current events, right? So there you go. So please, if you're a pro-Palestinian commentator listening to this, stop with the history. We all know the history already. Or if you want, just link a video to the history so you don't have to keep discussing it. So now, why do I think these two parties can't have peace? So first off, let me just let me just tell you how peace has been historically achieved. So let's take U.S. and Japan for instance, World War II. So at the start of World War II, pre Pearl Harbor, like nobody's bombed anybody yet. U.S. put Japan under some sort of oil embargo. So Japan, necessary, understandably, did not like that. So they offered terms to the U.S. like we would have peace, just let us buy oil, and we're gonna be equal, right? So that's fine. That's their peace terms. Um, let's fast forward a bit. U.S. Japan fought a bit, nuclear bomb, etc., etc. And then we go to the final surrender terms. So as you can imagine, the power imbalance is not equal anymore, or is not as close to equal as it was at the start, because probably the U.S. still had an advantage then. But it's not equal anymore. All of the Japanese carriers have been sunk. Tokyo had been firebombed. Their two, I think, their two cities. I think they were industrial bases as well. Nagasaki and Hiroshima were both nuclear bombed. Um, Okinawa had been taken. The Russians were coming. So at that point, all the Japanese wanted is that please don't execute our emperor. So they could take the entire island, they could put them under occupation, and then that's it. They would surrender, unconditional surrender, because that's how far the power imbalances has begun. Has descended to. So essentially, two sides fight. One side becomes more and more powerful. The other side becomes weaker and weaker. And then eventually, the stronger side or the weaker side accepts the demands of the stronger side, and things go on. So this is actually the problem with the the Israel-Palestine conflict. So this map, I think, is a perfect example. So 1946, this is pre U, this is pre UN declaration. So this is Palestine, or what they thought of Palestine at that time. Then during the formal declaration, this is the two divisions, and this is also when the Israelis fought for their independence. Now, after winning that war, in 1967, before the big war, driving the Egyptians and the Jordanians out, this is how the map looked like. And now, with Oslo and all the settlements, this is how the map looks like. However, when you ask the Palestinians what their demands are, they want to go back to this 1947 line, or at the very least, they want to go back to this 1967 line. So they want all of these territories, despite having lost like 10 or more wars. So that's actually the issue there. The Palestinians don't actually recognize reality for what it is. So the reality is your side is getting weaker and weaker, whether it's through military means, because back in 1947, the Israeli and the Palestinian sides weren't actually that far apart. Um, the Palestinians had all the Arab armies, but backing it. The Israelis didn't even actually have the U.S. backing it. They had the U.S. Jews, of course, because they were co-religionists, and they got funding from them. But if I recall correctly, most of their arms came from Czechoslovakia. So the arms and armaments of the Palestinians and the Israelis and the Arab armies weren't that far apart to begin with. Economy-wise, Israel hasn't been established yet, so it's not that far apart from Palestine too. However, Israel made some good decisions. Palestine not some not very good decisions, and Israel kept developing more and more. More importantly, Israel chose U.S. as the ally. Uh, Palestine chose to side along with most of the Arab world with the USSR. So, understandably, their alliance kept getting weaker and weaker, and Palestine kept getting weaker and weaker as a result. Now, so since they don't recognize the reality that their side is massively weaker now, they the Israelis themselves don't actually have any incentive to accept the Palestinians' peace terms. Because if you look at the progression of this map, and this is only 2012. This is even worse now. The Palestinian territories are getting smaller and smaller, and Schmotrich even passed a law right now to place a lot of Area C under Israeli control. So in the near future, you might actually have a Palestinian state that's only relegated to like Ramallah, Tulkarem, maybe Hebron. So just all the big cities, all of the Bedouin will have been driven back into them and everything. Now, aside from that, when the Palestinians make their argument to the West, they make it on like human rights. They make it on international law. So basically, they're telling the West that they have to support them. They're asking for all these support, but they're not really providing anything except telling the West that it's your obligation to support us because of all the laws that you have set up. That's a problem because that doesn't really go very far in real politics. The West has to get something from supporting you. Now, we go to Israel. You get a highly motivated army in the region. You get one of the best armies. You get one of the best tech sectors in the world. Right now, more importantly, there are three modern armies that I consider to be real modern armies. That's Russia, Ukraine, and Israel. They're the only ones with any experience with drone warfare. So if you're not learning from one of them, or if you don't have one of them on your side, then even if you're the U.S. and you participated in Desert Storm, you don't have any recent combat experience. Even combat experience as far as Afghanistan and Iraq is already outdated. So you have all that, and the Palestinians, well, all they say is that the Arabs will recognize you or side with you if you side with us. But the Arabs have already signed the Abraham Accords, or at least some of them have. So they're already telling the West that no, we actually support Israel. And if you actually look at it, there are some Arab countries that have already out and out signed the Abraham Accords, but the other Arab countries like Egypt or Saudi Arabia, they may not favor Israel by word, but when you see the deeds that they do, then they favor Israel. So when it comes to the U.S., so like the Palestinians will say that the U.S. has been bribed, the U.S. has been bought by APAC or something. But when the proposition is given to the U.S. president, like, okay, who do you want to side with, sir? Do you want to side with the Palestinians, or do you want to side with the Israelis? You can really only side with one. Then they have to pick the Israelis, not because they've been bribed, but because the Palestinians are not offering anything. The Palestinians have to make a positive case for why they should be supported, and it's not enough to say international law. So, which actually leaves the Palestinians in a very difficult spot. I don't claim to have any answers for them. Uh, but the first step to getting an answer is realizing the position you're in, and I don't think they've actually done that, because if they have done that, they wouldn't be asking for the 1967 or 1947 plan back. And in fact, when you hear their arguments, they're not even asking for 1947. They're asking for 1946. They want a Palestine that looks like this. They say all the Israelis are Europeans anyway, so they have somewhere to go, and that they want the right of return, so that essentially everyone from around the world who at least has a Palestinian grandparent or something can go to Palestine because they're still considered a refugee. And of course, if we go by democracy, one vote for one person, they're all gonna outvote the Israelis, and you're gonna have a one-state Israel that looks like this, which is pretty much gonna be renamed Palestine. So again, expectations have to conform to reality. Until the expectation of one side, the Palestinians, conforms to the reality, they're never gonna get any sort of peace. Now, the problem is, in 1967, or maybe during the first Oslo, if they gave up enough land, they might have had enough power to claim uh, to claim a good peace for themselves. Right now, they don't have that power. And to make matters worse, the people in charge of the Israeli government right now are fighters. So, how do we put this well? Whenever you listen to the Israeli-Palestine conflict, you hear the settlers, you hear the settlers burning down villages. You hear the Gaza massacres and stuff. That's one part of it, but honestly, I don't even think that's the major part. I've always believed that the battles in war is the last place that you should look at. The first place you should look at is like the economics, the logistics, the production, because that ultimately is what wins the battles. And Schmotrich and Ben Gvir and Netanyahu are actually targeting Palestinian economics. So number one, they banned some NGOs from operating in Palestine. NGOs are what a lot of college level Palestinians aspire to go to, which means that if that's their middle class. If you take out their middle class, then the lower class suffers as well, because there's no middle class people to buy their services. Now, can they take out the upper class? No, because the upper class gets money directly from Europe. The Palestinian Authority gets money directly from Europe, and it used to be the U.S. And other Arab countries. Now, can you reduce that money? Yes, they've already reduced the U.S. Contribution to zero. Some European states barely give as well. But you're never gonna reduce it to zero totally. So the Palestinian Authority figures will always keep some money for themselves. Now, aside from that, the Palestinians teachers have also been banned in East Jerusalem, understandably because they teach Palestinian curriculums. So that means that's another middle class life life lifeline caught, then I don't know. Maybe some of you guys missed this, but Israelis started to target money transfer places, like Western Union and MoneyGram, because in the West Bank, because they were used to fund Hamas, and I'm sure some of their funds were going to Hamas. But more importantly, the Palestinian diaspora also uses that funds to transfer money into their family in Palestine. You know, much like the Cuban diaspora uses money transfer to fund the Cubans, which keeps their country going, which in this case keeps the Palestinian country going. So basically, the Palestinians are under attack from all fronts, whether it's military through the settlers, military through the IDF in Gaza, whether it's economic, whether it's cultural. Every single front they're under attack. They don't have a plan on what to do. In fact, one of my criticisms for the Board of Peace and the Palestine is the Palestine don't have an alternate plan of their own. And aside from that, their thinkers, the intelligentsia class, is more interested in debating the start of the conflict rather than coming up with solutions to the current conflict. So, all in all, Palestinians are kind of screwed. Uh, it is what it is. I have to say that not every national group gets their own territory. Sometimes it happens. The Kurds have fought with the U.S. for a while. They've been screwed over multiple times, and up to now, they have not gotten their own state. The Native Americans didn't get their own state; they got reservations. Um, I'm sure you can go to any country in the world and show some ethnic minority that has been displaced. So it is what it is. On that happy note, thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you guys like and subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow. Oh, okay. Um, if you ask me, so one thing I hate about the current commentators is that they discuss the problem but they don't give a solution, right? So what is my solution for the Israel-Palestine conflict? The Palestinians will not like the solution. Why? Because it's based on reality. So what I would do is that I would tell the Palestinians to give up. I would tell them to accept that they're gonna be second-class citizens in Israel for a while, and I will tell them that they have to do that in order to win in the future. So what do I mean? All right. So tell the Israelis we surrender. We want to join everything from the river to the sea. All of that will be white. All of that will be Israel. We'll be second-class citizens. We don't get to vote. And Israel will be forced to accept that because everybody will say like, okay, Palestinians are giving up everything. Why don't you take them in? And I'm sure that some foreign governments will even provide funding to make the transition easier. So the Israelis will be forced to take that. However, you just have to behave for 2 or 3 generations, and by that time, Israel will look so bad in in not giving this docile population rights that that they will have to give you rights already. Now, you might say that what if they don't? The thing is, you're not gonna do anything to antagonize them. You're gonna live your life as second-class citizens. You're not gonna revolt. You're not gonna do anything. So there's gonna be a sizable Israeli population that says, you know what? They've integrated, right? They're already good. So we can go ahead and give them rights. Now at that time, because that actually happened in Israel. You have the Ashkenazi Jews, and the Mizrahi Jews, the Arab Jews. They actually integrated into one big country. So at that time, when the Israelis give you your voting rights, that's when you remember that you're Palestinians again, and then you get all the power, or you get all the positions in Israel because you're probably still gonna have more people than them, because number one, you have your diaspora, and number two, uh, pound for pound, there's usually more people in a Palestinian family than there is in an Israeli one. So, it does require sacrifice. It requires a long-term cultural memory that you have to keep alive on a household level, because you're not gonna have wide institutions for it. You're gonna have to keep it. You're gonna have to remember that you're Palestinians first and foremost, in a household level, um, and there is a risk that you just get culturally assimilated. Like your young generation will want to be Israeli because of maybe the higher standard of living, and forget that they're Palestinians. Um, so it's a plan. You don't like it, you'll probably never do it, and there are risks to it. The alternative is to lose, because that's where you're going right now. And international law and human rights are not going to save you. So, having offered my solution, I will end this video now, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a good day.